Good morning, everyone. So today I'm happy to announce that 3DCoat is finally working. Well, it's been working for a few weeks, but I've been out traveling, hiking around in the mountains of the Balkans for about 10 days, which was absolutely fantastic. And during that time, 3DCoat finally made that fix. It's an import fix, whereas before you had an import limit of 20 million polygons, but now I can get up to 100 million polygons, which is what it used to be in the 2024 version. So now it's working in the 2025 version as well. So what you need to do is to update it to 3DCoat 2025-10 instead of the 9, and as soon as you start 3DCoat you'll get the updates manager, and it will send you to a web page where you can download it and install it. So everything is taken care from here, and then after that it's actually working. So you can see the fixes they've done as well. There's quite a few fixes, and the one that I sent in a ticket for is fixed out of memory crash when importing a high poly object. So let's put it to the test and see if we actually can import an object or not. Back in 3DCoat, in the startup menu, I will hit surface sculpting and the folder and paste in where I have my file, and I got a big one here. It's an FBX. It's usually my preferred format for importing and exporting, because it's a lot smaller and it does contain vertex color information, which the OBJ does not do. Now, however, you can get the vertex color information in the OBJs as well. You just have to export in texture from Reality Capture. We can talk about all that in a bit. I'm going to pause it here, and when it's loaded in, I'll show you the thing. It takes a while to load 100 million poly object, so no need to just sit and stare at the blank screen. Here we go, it's imported, and you can see down there in the bottom it's over 100 million polygons, 100 million and 658. So it is definitely working. However, there are a few things that I'm wondering about. So you can see here there's a new photogrammetry tab over here. So there are some new features that I haven't used before, and I thought could investigate what they do, if they're of any value, or if it's just unusable, which it could very well be as well. So I got my normal workflow, and it's usually what I would do, I would export it as a dense mesh model from Reality Capture, and then I would take it into Houdini for a little session there. I would put it into a scale, a natural scale, and then I would export it into 3DCoat, because you can see here there's kind of issues because you don't know exactly what size it's going to come in as, and this one is absolutely huge. So it is in and it is working, but you can see it's clipping because it's so big, and there are reasons for that. One of the strangest things with 3DCoat is that it's using millimeters as its base scale. This is unheard of. I think it's the only program that uses millimeters. At least Maya had the courtesy to use centimeters, which is an affront in it by itself. It should be meters and nothing else. But here we are. Now this can actually be changed, so let's see if we can do that. So if we go up to Edit Preferences, and let's see what happens if we click on, instead of so get in, out, FBX, export units, millimeters to meters, and in the viewport use fixed scene scale meters. Okay, let's try this. And here we go. It seemed to have done the trick. It's now in a much more convenient scale. So let's see if we can zoom in. Yep. And if we test it a little bit with the brush size, you can see here radius. If I set it to something like 5, I get a decently sized brush, and 1 gives me this size, and I can of course also go down to, let's see, 0.1 or 2. So I get the full range of brushes if I set the scale to meter. You can set it to whatever you like, of course. Centimeters might work fine as well if you're more of a Maya user. But since I'm a Houdini user, I prefer to keep everything in meters if it's possible. So now this would fit quite good, just to clean it up and export it and then re-import it into Reality Capture to apply the textures. You might still have to do a lot of flipping and flopping and all kinds of stuff to get it right, and that is of course always a trouble. So that's why I want to check out the photogrammetry options that we have. Let's click on that. So let's go through and see if this does anything to help the workflow. Like I said, my normal workflow is to get it into Houdini, get it into scale, rotate everything the way I want it, and then bring it into 3DCoat, clean it up, back to Houdini, flip it into the coordinates that I want, and then back to RealityScan, and then apply textures there in RealityScan. So that would normally be the workflow. But if I can skip a couple of these steps, that would be absolutely fantastic. So let's see if it works out. I have only quickly glanced at the photogrammetry tools, so let's click on it and see what it can do. It takes you into the photogrammetry room, and I think this is pretty much what it has here. It's got 3 options. So what it does do, it's just like it's a bridge. If you remember GoZ, and yeah, there are all kinds of bridges. So it just fires up a script that opens up RealityScan, presses a couple of buttons, and re-exports the mesh into 3DCoat. So quite the simple thing, but can still be, of course, very useful if it works. So let's start from the beginning. So it is already hooked up to RealityScan by default. So if you have more engines, they might show up there. I only use RealityScan because it's the best in my opinion. And then video to 3D, we don't have to bother with, but shots to 3D, that's your classic. You take an image and create photogrammetry from that. So let's click on that and see what it wants us to do. Shots to 3D. So I'm going to go to that fanal tree that I was showing you before, and we can go to the images, and these are the images that I have. So I should only have to click on one, and then it wants me to save it as well. So I'm gonna get to a folder called test here, and I name this test as well, and then save. So what it does now, it's gonna fire up RealityScan here, as you can see, and it's gonna import all the images in that folder, and then it's gonna do an alignment, and it's gonna do a meshing as well, and it's eventually also gonna do a texturing and create a color map for you. So this is of course going to take some time. All right, that actually didn't go too well. I had to wait for an hour. It takes a long time to do these things, of course, and when I re-imported it, it crashed the whole machine, and I actually got the same kind of bug that I had before when importing, the out of memory bug. So I'm going to try something different. Let's hit the photogrammetry tab again, and shots to 3D, this one. Yes, find the images, and I click on this one. So this will be a lot faster. So I'll save it here as tutorial. Now I have tried this file a little bit before, and I did get some success, so I'm more confident. I think the other one might have been too extreme. I'm not sure what happened there, to be honest, but let's see how this works here. So I'll click save, and it's going to do its thing now. Now it's important that you don't have the same scene open in RealityScan, because then it's going to crash the system as well. So this one worked a lot better. So it's in, but as you can see, it's now flipped because we have different coordinate systems. So this is, well, this is not usable, and we have to think if there is any way we can fix this. And I know there is one fix, but let's explore what it is actually exporting, and if there's something you can do. Like you saw now, it's just you click a button and things happen. Here we have the file that it actually created. So I opened it up from disk, and let's see what it does. So this is all created with that command sent from 3DCoat, and we got the models that it creates. So it should be this one here is the main one. So it solved 237 out of 245 frames. So there are 4 frames that didn't get solved, or something like that. Maybe 8 frames. And these are here. So that's why I have a couple of these entries here. So these are just failed frames. This one is a bit odd though. It creates like 2 identical scenes. Don't know why it does that. But it seems like in the first one here you got everything. So you got the one called export. And it creates a little a texture also. And here you can see one thing that's a bit odd already. It's set to 16K textures. Now this is actually my fault, because I was experimenting around a little bit before, trying to see how high I could go with the textures and that kind of thing. But that is of course way too high. So it seems like the program, when it opens it up, it remembers the settings, so it doesn't create any settings from scratch or anything like that. It doesn't have any baked in settings. It takes whatever the settings you last used in RealityScan. So we can we got to go to here, this settings here. So the texture settings. So we got the default unwrap parameters. We can get this down to something a little bit more usable, like 8K. And I think the 16K I had there, that might be the reason why that other heavier one failed as well. I'm pretty sure that's it. I do know I get failures, but I have to go very much higher in the poly count than that. So with that set, and if I save that, the next time I generate this, it should be an 8K texture. So what you get here, let's check what it actually outputted for me. So you got the OBJ file here, which is 3.2 gigabytes big. So it tries to import that into 3DCoat, and then it's got a diffuse PNG file, a texture file that it created as well. This one also gets imported into 3DCoat, and that's what creates the vertex colors. So there's no other way from 3DCoat than to use OBJs. You can't do it with FBXs, as it seems. It automatically does the OBJs. In 3DCoat, you can also see that it only generated it in a normal resolution mode. So it means that it only got around 27 million polygons. So there's no way to use this feature and get the highest quality possible, the highest resolution. You're going to have to be happy with the normal resolution to send these back and forth. But let's see if we can fix the coordinate system. The first thing to check out is back in RealityScan. Let's see if we can export this with some flips to it, so it fits a little bit better. So we go to the dense mesh model. We got the export selected, dense mesh model. And I usually like to use FBX, so it's set to FBX, but we're going to try the OBJ. Now, my idea here, I know it's going to work if I flip it myself here, but we're just going to name it something like that. We're not going to use it. We're just going to do an export, because the only way to access the these settings here is in when you actually save it out. So now it's saved. Now we're going to save it as an OBJ. So let's see what happens if we change anything of this. So what we are looking for is transformation preset. So if I switch this from default, which is what is causing the flip, and we do, let's do the Maya. That's and you can see it's going to do a -90, -90. I think Blender is the same. It does the 100 times. Let's do Blender. I think a lot of you guys like Blender, so that's good. Texture that's exported, you can choose here if it's going to be in this format or in the UDIM format. And it probably doesn't matter for now. I prefer UDIM, of course, when I'm working. But let's see what happens. I'm going to export this one. That worked just fine. So we can see it's very workable. It'll come up with the right coordinates. So let's see if we can run this photogrammetry now, and if it's going to export it correctly. And it worked. All the coordinates are now correct, and I should be able to start working on this file here, and everything should be fine. Now there is just one thing. So I got this to work, but only in the normal quality. So it's only 26 million, and to me that's a little bit too low for high quality hero assets. I like to work with around 100 million. So this won't probably do for me if it's not a very small object. So what happens if we try to use a much higher resolution object then? Well, you have the opportunity here to, instead of creating everything from scratch, you can actually import a project. So this means that whatever you have in your RealityScan scene, that one will be exported and then imported into 3DCoat. So not nearly as powerful. It's not that kind of a one-click solution. It's more of a, you fix it in RealityScan and then it becomes more like an import bridge between them. However, after fiddling around with that a bit, I noticed I reach a cap there as well. So what happens is that once I get above 50 million, it runs out of memory as well. And it's not my system. I have a very powerful system, so I know I can take much more than that. And it's probably some kind of a bug. And what it has to do that makes it run out of memory, because it doesn't have a problem to import anything without the color, that's 100 million. But as soon as you need to import that texture as well to get the vertex color on, that's when it fails. So I can show you here quickly what happens when I try the import project stuff instead. Here I have a pre-prepped scene with one mesh that's 95 million polygons and generated using the high detail option here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this scene clean, just one model, so not to confuse 3DCoat what it needs to fetch to get in there. I'm just going to save this. It's saved, and then I'm going to exit. Now it's quite important that you exit, because if 3DCoat finds that there's an instance with the exact same scene open already, it's going to screw up the whole system. You have to shut down programs and stuff like that. It's going to get super confused. And back in 3DCoat, I'm going to go to Import Project. And here we go to this test 2, I called it. And let's wait and we'll see what it does. So it's going to open up, of course, and now it's going to export the mesh that we have, trying to get it out as a textured and colored mesh. And here you can clearly see that I got an instability warning. So it's running out of memory when it tries to do this. So not good at all. So click no. Let's try a scene with 95 million polygons and no textures whatsoever. So I'm going to save this and close it down, because you have to close it down or else 3DCoat is going to get really confused. And here we are in 3DCoat, and we're going to do an import project. Test 3. And now we wait. So now it's not going to do any of the calculations or anything like that. It's just going to export this with the settings we had in the OBJ before. And since there are no textures, we're not going to get any color information in, but it's also not going to crash. And this worked. So I did get the 95 million poly mesh in, but without the textures. So this is of course workable. I could clean this up, save it, and import it into RealityScan for texturing. But what happens if I want the vertex colors Back in RealityScan, let's expand this, export, alright. Let's check the texture settings so we don't make a mistake here. So I'm going to export one texture here, maximal texture count 1 at 8K. Let's try that first and see what happens. So I'm just going to hit the texture. Well, something seemed to have happened here. Let's read. Could not meet the unwrap requirements. Please increase the maximal texture count or the maximal texture resolution. So 8K for a model that looks like this is not enough to unwrap it. But I need to unwrap it in order to get the vertex colors in. So my options are then either to add textures, another 8K, or increase it to 16K. Now I'm going to spare you the trouble of that because I have done it before, and although it works for generating textures, it's not something that you can send over to 3DCoat and you can't even import it in any other way. And actually I've tried opening the textures in Photoshop and then decreasing them now down to like 1K, and that doesn't work either. So something happens when you get up in a polygon count which makes it completely crash all the time. So I managed to get it to work somewhere around 50 million. Now it could get a little bit higher. I tried one at 80 million that didn't work, so who knows, maybe somewhere between 50 and 80 million it still might work, but I wouldn't hold my breath. So to summarize that, it's still usable if you don't generate the textures, and if you don't need the texture information for your cleanup process, you're still good. The last thing that needs to work smoothly as well is to get it back into RealityScan. So let's see what happens if we clean this up a bit and try to send it over. So I'm just going to go to the cutoff, and we're going to need just to put it in orthographic. Okay, that's fine. Just one more thing. I'm gonna do separate disconnected parts. That's deleting small things. That's little floaters and stuff. Gonna do that as well. Okay, it's cleaned up. Let's export and see what happens. Export selected objects. And it was the test 3. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to overwrite exactly the same one that you used for importing it. Because what happens then is that there is going to be a RC info file that contains the export information from RealityScan. And if you have the same file when you import it back in, you should not have to do any settings. That is how it's described. So by overwriting this one, it should all be the same. Back in RealityScan, let's see if we can import the model. And we're going to use these settings here, Blender, and see what happens. And here it is, our finished model, so to speak. And let's see how it compares. Is it in the right place? It is. So that seems to be working quite all right. Now, I still think there's lots about this that is super confusing, so if you feel the same, don't be discouraged. That's just the way it is. Don't know why it is like that. I think sometimes 3D programs need a European Union of decision making where everything should be standardized. But you know, coordinate systems and that kind of thing should be all the same. But it isn't. So it's a huge mess. And I can actually say, after working at many companies, it's like a silent killer. These things. It costs a lot of money to fix this, to send things through programs, and the amount of problems that can show up. It can take days of high-paid 3D artists' work, and it's not a good thing. It's super annoying, and I just don't understand why the software makers can't get their act together and make it a little bit more streamlined. We are coming up against the ghost of AI taking over everything, so this just will not do anymore, where things are not working as they should. Have to pay more attention to get these things right. Make it more user-friendly, more of simple clicks. I think in the past it's been a little bit of a gatekeeping thing, that things are not working as they should, and you have to go on forums and you have to have special knowledge in order to actually get even simple things working. And it still is quite a lot of that, even to this day. But I think that needs to change. I think people who are making these softwares, it's apparently brilliant people, but very, very bad in making it user-friendly. That's my opinion. And I just want things that work. I want to concentrate on the art, not pipeline issues. It's very frustrating. Just to summarize, did this photogrammetry tools here do anything? They did a little bit. So if you're happy with simple models, sending them back and forth, then it's okay. But I'm not going to use it. I'm going to stick to exporting my FBXs, and I'm going to write down all my transformations and etc., so I get them back and forth easily. I think the game changer for me now was to change everything in 3DCoat from millimeters to meters. That is helping me a lot, I can tell you. So that's my big takeaway of all of this. Not to say that this couldn't work in the future, but right now it feels a little bit half-cooked, half-baked, maybe is the correct terminology. I have a feeling that they might have tried it with a scanned apple or something simple like that, and it's like, oh, it seems to be working quite fine, but in reality it doesn't do very much. So, with that said, I'm hard at work with doing all my trees for the Fanal forest, and I'm going to show you everything that I am doing to get this working and getting into the Unreal Engine and what I'm doing. So there will be a series of tree generating stuff coming up about the Fanal forest, which is one of the coolest places in the world to visit. So I'm very happy to have some scans of that. So I hope to see you around soon again. Thanks for watching.